deep in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, where the air hung thick as molasses and secrets festered like old wounds, there stood the Magnolia Grace plantation, once grand, now dying, and its owner, Cornelius Pembroke, was a man backed into a corner. His money was gone, his land was failing, and his last remaining card to play was his daughter. Her name was Eleanor, but everyone called her Ellie. At 22, Ellie Pembroke was a ghost in her own home. Confined to the library, her world was books, Shakespeare, botany, philosophy. But her mind, sharp as a razor, was trapped in a body the world deemed unacceptable. To her father, her size wasn't a fact of life. It was a personal insult, a business liability, a problem he could no longer afford. Across the property, in the quarters where Hope went to die, lived a man named Samuel. To Cornelius, he was just another slave, a strong back. But to the others, Samuel was something more, a whisper, a story. They said his hands held old knowledge, that he could speak to plants, that he understood the body's secrets in a way the white doctors in town never could. He was a healer. One sweltering evening, desperation and bourbon pushing him over the edge, Cornelius made a decision that would unravel everything. He summoned Samuel to the decaying parlor. Ellie was there, trying to make herself small in a large armchair. A futile effort. Cornelius, mimic a gruff, drunken voice. They say you have ways, that you can fix the body. Well then, fix her. The words hung in the air, ugly and final. He pointed a trembling finger at his daughter, his face a mask of disgust. Cornelius. Take her to the old gardener's cottage. Do what you must. Make her presentable. If you fail, you'll be on the next wagon to the sugar mills. You won't survive a season. If you succeed, your load will be lighter. And just like that, with the casual cruelty of a man discarding trash, he gave his daughter to his slave. He didn't see the fire ignite in Ellie's eyes, a mix of humiliation and a new, terrifying fury. He didn't see the calculated stillness in Samuel's gaze. A deal with the devil. No, this was something Cornelius understood even less. A deal with a man who had nothing left to lose, and everything to learn about the woman he'd just been handed. The cottage was a shack, 2 rooms, dust, and a silence so loud it screamed. For the first week, Samuel said nothing. He would leave a plate of simple food by her door, grilled fish, greens, a sweet potato. He placed a pitcher of water infused with lemon and mint on the rickety table. And then he would leave. Ellie's fury boiled over. Was this his plan? To starve her into submission? To ignore her into thinness, finally? She stormed out as he was tending a stubborn patch of earth. Ellie, mimic a voice strained with anger and pride. Well, when does the miracle begin? When do you start your savage magic on me? Samuel didn't look up. He gently pressed soil around a plant. Samuel, mimic a calm, deep, resonant voice, the key to his character. There is no magic here, only cause and effect. He finally looked at her. His eyes weren't the eyes of a servant. They were the eyes of a scholar assessing a complex text. Samuel, your body. It is a story of rich food, of stillness, of shame. You have been fed this story every day of your life. To change the body, you must first change the story. But that, he said, standing slowly, is a choice only you can make. It was the first time anyone had spoken to Ellie, not as a problem, but as a person. Not as a thing to be fixed, but as a mind capable of choice. The anger didn't vanish, but it cracked, revealing something vulnerable and raw underneath. Samuel, tomorrow Before the sun thinks about rising, we will walk, not to punish the body, to listen to it." And so it began, not with a regimen, but with a ritual. In the cool, blue-grey light of dawn, when the world was still asleep, they walked, and Samuel began pointing out plants. Samuel: "This is yarrow. It staunches blood. This is wild ginger, for the stomach. That tree, its bark holds a tea that brings down fever." Ellie's brilliant mind, so long starved for real challenge, latched on. She started asking questions, technical questions, physiological questions. She wasn't just listening, she was studying. Samuel, for the first time in decades, found himself not just sharing scraps of knowledge, but having a true conversation. He showed her his most prized possession, a small, carefully hidden chest containing fragile papers, notes on healing, diagrams of plants, written in his own script. In that dusty cottage, a forbidden trade was made. He shared the ancient wisdom of his ancestors. She shared the structured knowledge of the Western texts she'd devoured. Healer and scholar, student and teacher. The lines blurred, then vanished altogether. Weeks bled into months. The dawn walks became longer. Ellie's body began to change, slowly, steadily. It wasn't the dramatic shrinking her father wanted. It was something better. It was strength. She could walk farther. She helped Samuel in his herb garden, feeling the sun on her back, the dirt under her nails, a connection to the earth she'd never known. But the real transformation wasn't happening in her muscles or her waistline. It was happening in the quiet hours in the cottage. One evening, as Samuel prepared a poultice, Ellie spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Ellie, I used to think the worst sound in the world was their laughter, the girls at the parties. Now, I think it's the silence in this house, the silence of being unseen." Samuel was quiet for a long time. "Samuel, I know the silence of being seen only as a tool, a back, a pair of hands. They look at my body and see a plough. They look at yours and see a failed ornament. We are both prisons of different designs." That was the crack through which the light poured in. They weren't a slave and a master's daughter anymore. They were Samuel and Ellie, two prisoners comparing maps of their cages, and secretly planning a jailbreak. The treatment became a partnership. Ellie used her knowledge of chemistry to refine his tinctures. He taught her how to feel the energy of the body, to listen to its whispers, before they became screams. She wasn't losing weight out of shame. She was gaining strength out of purpose. But outside their cottage sanctuary, the real world festered. Cornelius caught a glimpse of Ellie one afternoon. She was different, straighter, healthier, a spark in her eye. Instead of pride, he felt greed. His investment was paying off. It was time to cash in. He announced a dinner. A guest was coming, a wealthy widowed merchant from New Orleans named Mr. Thorne. The purpose was unmistakable. The same day, Cornelius found Ellie in the library, not with a novel, but with Samuel's notes open beside a medical textbook, cross-referencing. The sight of his slaves writing beside his daughters, the intimacy of shared knowledge, enraged him more than any act of defiance. Cornelius, exploding with rage. "You dare let him educate you! You consort with property as if it were a person!" He had Samuel dragged to the barn. Ellie heard the sounds, the sickening crack of the whip. She ran, but was held back. She saw it. Samuel's back turned into a nightmare. And she saw Samuel's face, not contorted in pain, but locked in a stillness more terrifying than any scream. His eyes met hers, and in them she didn't see submission. She saw a promise. That night, Ellie did the unthinkable. She stole the house's medical kit, took herbs from Samuel's garden, and crept to the quarters. With hands steady from months of precise study, she cleaned his wounds. She applied the poultices they had designed together. No words were spoken. None were needed. The patient was now the teacher. The scholar was now the healer. As she worked, Samuel spoke through gritted teeth. "Samuel, you must go to the dinner. You must be perfect." Ellie, voice hard as steel. "No, I am done being perfect. I am ready to be something else." The night of the dinner arrived. Ellie wore a dress that now fit her stronger frame. She entered the dining room, and a hush fell. Mr. Thorne, a man with the eyes of a ledger book, looked her up and down. He saw the transformation and smiled, a cold, acquisitive smile. The conversation was vile. Thorne spoke of managing assets, of breeding stock, his comments floating between slaves and livestock. Cornelius laughed along, eager, pouring more wine. Then Thorne turned to Ellie, leaning close, his breath smelling of cigar and privilege. Thorne mimicked a smug, oily voice. "A remarkable improvement, my dear. Your father tells me you've been disciplined. It becomes you. A woman, like a fine horse, needs a firm hand." Cornelius beamed, waiting for Ellie's modest blush, her downcast eyes. That was the old story. Ellie set her fork down. The sound was like a gavel. She stood. Every eye was on her. She didn't look at Thorne. She looked at her father, and her gaze was a spear. "Ellie," voices calm, clear, and projects across the room. "You are right, father. You gave me to a healer, and he healed me. But not of my body. He healed me of you." Cornelius, sputtering. "Eleanor, sit down. You are hysterical." Ellie, louder, more powerful. "You gave me to Samuel to make me small. Instead, he showed me how to be large, in mind, in spirit. He taught me that strength isn't taken, it's built. And you, Mr. Thorne, you see a woman who has been broken and remade for your convenience. Let me be clear. I have been remade for my own purpose. Subscribe for second part.